So February saw Final Fantasy XIV announce that they're going to be upgrading their player character graphics. Well, it was a graphic update, but it primarily going to be focusing on player character updates. So we can assume that will be coming sometime well within the next 2 years if we're following the recent trajectory of Final Fantasy XIV expansions, which we had 2017, and then we had 2019, and then 2021. So essentially, you're getting an expansion from them right around every 2 years or so. The update will target the appearance of characters, which honestly still look pretty good. I mean, they're not that aged. They're aged. Don't get me wrong, they are aged. They could be improved, but they're not bad. It will include improved shaders, lighting adjustments, and perhaps the big one, higher resolution textures. They showed off some nifty pictures, which you're seeing now, but that's not what this video is about. There are plenty of other YouTubers much more in tune with the Final Fantasy community who can really cover this in a lot more depth than I can. I want to talk about graphic overhauls in MMOs in general. Now, when I say graphic overhauls in general, it brings to mind a couple different games. For me, it brings to mind World of Warcraft that did a complete overhaul of their graphics with their Cataclysm expansion. It brings to mind Ultima Online, which made a second version of their game, similar to how Runescape did 2 different versions of their game. It makes me think of Everquest and how Lucklin in 2001 updated character models. It makes me think of Everquest 2 with their Soga models, which were something you could toggle on and off. And it also brings to mind things that have not happened yet, but have been somewhat announced. Lord of the Rings Online should be getting a graphics update, as we saw in this video here on the card from EG7. DC Universe Online as well will get the similar treatment. When will these graphics updates happen? Well, sometime in 2023 would be my best guess. Whenever these are done in an MMO, it's a delicate balance. I think even more so than perhaps doing a remaster or a remake, because there is so much nostalgia tied to an ongoing game, like with a remake or a remaster, but the nostalgia isn't set in one point in time. An MMO has a lot of longevity if it's done well. I mean, if we look at some of the early games, they're still going. EverQuest, Ultima Online, Dark Age of Camelot, they all still have active servers, and many of them still have the same graphics, or graphics that have not been updated, at least for a decade or so. It's getting a little long in the tooth, I think. So this delicate balance, though, is something where they have to consider both the current players, the old school players who go for old school nostalgia, and then the players that are perhaps turned off by outdated graphics that no longer look like they belong in the time when the game is currently active. So you have some fans that would welcome changes, and you have fans that would revolt if there were changes. I'm sure in the comments below, talking about the game that I'm going to talk about, there will be plenty of comments saying that the graphics should not be changed at all, that we should just keep it as is because that's what it was and that's what it should be. As we mentioned, games have done this a lot of different ways, and I think the best way for MMOs has always been kind of the approach to try and please everybody. It may take more time, it may take more effort and money, but I think it works out in the end. Now, with World of Warcraft, you saw them go all in, right? So there is no option to go back to the old graphics unless you play classic. With games like EverQuest, games like RuneScape, and even single player games like the Halo Master Chief Collection, you have options. Halo Master Chief, you could toggle back and forth seamlessly while playing the game. In the other versions, in the other MMO versions, a lot of them also have toggle options where you can pick and choose. Now the difference there between an MMO and a single player game is perception. So it's the way you are perceived in game. I know that this was a concern for a lot of players when you had the ability to toggle your appearance. Well, I want to look this way, but people are going to view me how they want to view the character models. And I know it may sound a little bit like strange to get upset about that, but it's because an MMO is such a unique experience where the way you're perceived in the world is often very important to you. It is a world with multiple people playing around with you. So when you're crafting your character look a certain way, you want other people to see that. And it makes a little sense that adding in too many toggle options can hurt that ability. My question for you, and the question that I'm going to try and answer for me in this video, is what game do you think badly needs to update their graphics? It should come as no surprise that for me, my game is going to be Everquest. Everquest had its last graphical update in 2001 for player character models. 2001. I've had a graphical update since 2001. It's not a good one necessarily. Got more wrinkles, but it's at least an update. It's something, it's a change. So Everquest is not updated. It is still the exact same game that it was, player character model was in 2001, with a slight caveat to that. But before we go into that, let's back up to when Everquest really made its first change in graphics in Everquest, which was Velius, not Lucklin. Everquest added a new custom armor system in Velius, which kind of at the time revolutionized the way things were, because for the first expansion and for Classic, there was really essentially one look. And then you got to Velius and you had multiple different textures for armors, which changed the appearance of characters. It was a big step forward, but it's also where a step ended for a very long time in Everquest. Move on to Lucklin and you added the new character models, and they made a huge deal of these character models. Just look at this trailer showing how excited they were, not only about the character models, but the mounts that they were adding. And I remember as a kid back then, like, this is fucking amazing. Yes, really, I was so excited to see this. I was so excited to move away from the low poly Everquest models to these new Lucklin models. I didn't like all of them, but it was still a cool new thing. And we were only a couple years into the game and it was exciting to see. So then so that was 2001. So we go from 1999 to 2001. We've had an armor update and we've had a character model graphics update. And then we waited. We waited some more. We continue to wait and keep waiting until 2012. And in 2012, Everquest added a somewhat controversial feature. So up through 2012, from 2001 to 2012, we had, again, one type of armor, and that was it. Yes, you had armor dyes, and that was the cosmetics that we had in game. But that was it. 2012 added the Heroes Forge feature, and the Heroes Forge feature allowed you to basically snap on armor on top of your own armor to give you a different visual appearance. So you weren't finding this at the time in the world. It was just something you purchased from the store and you purchased the feature. Not the best, but it did get better. By this point in Everquest history, it is much improved. You get armor pieces that drop in the world. So you get unique armor pieces dropping in the world. There's sets. Some of it's by raid, some of it's by grouping. There's multiple different ways. Yes, they still have some on the store, specifically in loot boxes, but that's a subject for a different video. Now, the Heroes Forge feature may still be a bit of a contentious thing to have in there, especially since the game has a subscription model. I mean, I would say it's one of those things that should just be included in the subscription, but that's not here nor there because it's not. But at least this provided a change. But as we kept progressing, so 2012 to now, yes, we have new armor, but the player character models are still from 2001. So to put that in perspective, this was Everquest when it launched. This was Everquest in Velius. This was Everquest in 2001. Everquest in 2012. Everquest in 2022. So for me, one of the things that I started to see as the game kept going is the environments continue to improve. The NPCs continue to improve. They weren't like incredible improvements, but they were something. They were a slight improvement over and over and over again. And as those slight improvements added up, you had the player character models feeling more and more dated. Character graphics may not be the most pressing thing for Everquest to fix. You know what? They're fucking certainly not. But they think they're still an important part of that puzzle of reinvigorating a game that is increasingly relying on nostalgia and increasingly relying on a somewhat shrinking but still healthy player base to keep going. I feel like this game may have plans. We had a roadmap that showed changes. We have a UI implementation coming next year. We have the 64-bit client that just happened. I think there is some appetite with EverQuest, with Darkpaw, to make changes and do it in a way that does not piss off every EverQuest fan who painfully remembers fucking Freeport revamp. So if EverQuest were to update character models, if they were to, let's say, update the human models from this to what they added in the recent Kunark expansions as the human model, would you want that just to be the norm? Would you want a third clickable option? You had the classic, you had the Lucklin, and then a third option? Or do you want them just to leave it alone completely? Please let us know down in the comments, because I'm curious to see how many of you have a similar idea to what I do and how many have vastly different ideas. What do you think? My name is Redbeard Flynn. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made you think a little bit about your favorite games. And if so, please leave a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Looking forward to hearing from you and looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.